having current interference, so please excuse me. We call this meeting to order. And of course, we'd like to welcome Commissioner McLeod today. So thank you so much for joining us. We're excited about having you work with us. And at this time, you're quite welcome. You're quite welcome.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll have a financial update and project tracker. Elise?
Yes, and good afternoon, board members. We've got a lot going on in the district. I'll start with the art infusion and facade enhancements for Dixieland. That is rolling out the gate very well. I can tell you the team has been active in getting inquiries and pounding the pavement to make contact with, potential customers out in Dixieland. So we're excited, and we're going to keep that one rolling. On the project front, Tapatios is completed, so that will come off of our tracker. And looks like Mirrorton is also kicking along. There are some residents living out there, so I encourage you to drive by and maybe wave at some of those folks. We still have a little bit of work to do over in that area, just in terms of streetscape improvements and substation screening for that electrical substation, but we'll start to see some progress on that as well. And then we've got some recent grant inquiries from folks who are doing renovations at Nathan's, so it'd be great to kind of see some of those buildings along Munn Park take shape and move our downtown forward. And then you may have seen the concept for the Gore building as well, which was recently released. And again, that's another critical building to activate those corridors downtown. So excited to see Massachusetts Avenue taking shape with the Summit construction as well. And downtown is looking great. That's all I have on that. And we've got a ribbon cutting for Midtown Lofts that you'll get the invitation to April 26th, 9:30 to 11 a.m. So save the date, and we'll certainly send around some invitations to that as well. But Midtown Lofts is also coming to a close. So another wonderful project of affordable housing for Midtown, much needed. And then I'll stop and I'll take any questions from you all.
Excellent. Looking forward to that event. If there are no questions, we'll proceed to the next item. Any housekeeping?
No, sir. No housekeeping.
Okay. Well, we'll move to our action items. Old business. If we could entertain a motion to approve the January 7th minutes. Who moved that?
That was Corey Petkoff.
Mr. Petkoff, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Harry Bryant, second.
Mr. Bryant, thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and properly second that we approve the minutes from January 7th, and we will proceed with a voice vote. Myself, aye. Brandon Edie. Brandon Edie. Frank Langsford.
Aye.
Commissioner McLeod.
Aye.
Harry Bryant.
Aye.
Cliff Wiley.
Aye.
Brian Godding. Brian Godding.
I believe he's not present, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Dean Boring.
He's also not present.
Okay. Brian Waller.
Aye.
Thank you. And Corey Petkoff.
Aye.
Thank you so much. So is the order minutes are approved. And we did not have a quorum last month, so we do not have minutes to approve from the month of February. Is that correct?
That is correct, but I believe we do have minutes from the prior meeting.
We do have minutes from the prior meeting? Okay.
Yes, sir.
For the month of December?
Let's see. So in your package here, it is
January 7th.
January 7th.
January. Did we not approve the January 7th meeting minutes just now?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't catch that there. So
Oh,
just looking at notes here. So if we're good to go, yeah, we're good to go on the meeting minutes. Mr. Chair.
okay. Excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right. Next item is new business, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics, manufacturing incentive program.
Yes, sir. And I'll just use STEM for the short on that.
Yes.
And basically, I'll be presenting this item, Mr. Chair. And so in 2016, Tyndale Oliver completed an economic development study. It was part of the strategy for the East Main District, which is one of the target areas of Midtown. It's largely industrial in that area. There were some short-term goals identified for that area. And basically, it was for us to adopt the facade improvement grants, some of the design assistant grants, and then also food-related services grant that we have for Dixieland, which is currently, it was available at the time solely in Dixieland. So we made that available in East Main District, but also part of that recommendation was a job creation incentive pilot program. And it was available only to companies that are creating new jobs within the East Main District. And so some of the highlights of that program as it is written includes a $5,000 incentive for each newly created full-time job. And then there was a $2,500 incentive for each job relocated from elsewhere in Polk County. The requirement is for that grant to create a minimum of 5 jobs with a cap of up to payment for 210 jobs. So we pay that award in arrears for the entire calendar year. And we do is we certify those positions have been filled for the entire calendar year. So just as an example, we will now receive one of the reviews for this incentive. We will receive that shortly, and we will be back paying that. So the payments for the grants are in lump sum over a 5-year period. Okay, and then we target marketed this in East Main District. We've administered close to a combination, a dozen design assistance, facade and site grants, infill reuse grants. However, we haven't had any food-related grants awarded in that area, and there's only been one award for the job-related incentive. And so since 2018, we've paid Colorado Box Beef $210,000 a year, and that obligation will be up in 2022. So you kind of fast forward to the City of Lakeland strategic planning session with the City Commission. And so that strategic planning focused on some key strategic target areas, which were selected by our commission. And it really looks at how we intend to allocate resources going forward. So there were some really extensive conversations about economic opportunity goals. And that goal is to, one, attract and retain a creative and talented, educated, and technically qualified workforce. And so with that, the priorities for us are to increase the average wage necessary for incoming businesses to receive city incentives, to also leverage city resources to gain high wage jobs, and with an increased focus on supporting education as well. So we want for these outcomes, we were asked to restructure incentives to target higher wage jobs, and then also to raise thresholds for those targeted incentives, while also looking at the CRA's policy or grant program to align with the city's program. Next slide, please, Jonathan. So just kind of comparing to the city, the city intends to offer a manufacturing research and development program as one component of the economic development strategy that will focus on generating higher wage jobs in the manufacturing and research and development sectors. And for those businesses that are locating or expanding within the city limits, the eligible businesses must be located outside of the CRA redevelopment area. Okay, so that's one of the key items there. So just kind of looking at the direction of the commission while also focusing on the increased needs of the Midtown CRA. We're proposing this STEM grant with a focus on those careers that are science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and manufacturing related, so we can recruit those businesses that intend to come into Lakeland and incentivize them, or also incentivize those expanding businesses. And so this will allow for expanded use of grant funds throughout Midtown. So this does not limit opportunity solely to the East Main District. And there are some limitations for just kind of what the applicants need to do to meet these thresholds. So we've created some criteria relative to the financials, right? So we want to see a minimum of 10 jobs paying 150% the average wage of Polk County, which is about $65,000, or they can create 25 new jobs paying 125% the average wage, which is $54,000. And that third option is to create 50 new jobs paying 115% the average wage, which is approximately $50,000. And of course, we want to make sure that the incoming businesses are making some capital investments. So we're looking at a $2.5 million capital investment. We would like to pay this out in a lump sum, and it's really important to do that. You know, we've been on the hook with Colorado Box B for a 5-year period. And so we want to pay the grant, get that money out to the applicants and the businesses coming in, and we want to move on from that payment. So we're looking at a maximum award of $150,000. And we wanted those funds to go towards some eligible improvements, permit fees, things that are often prohibitive to businesses coming in, water, wastewater impact fees, relocation of those utilities as well, overhead transmission lines and things of that nature. But then also additional infrastructure improvements or transportation traffic safety improvements. Next slide, please. So the recommendation here is for us to, staff is recommending that we adopt the STEM incentive with the wage thresholds presented, which will be applicable throughout the entire Midtown CRA. So this helps us also when you look at medical district, some of these other areas that we want to see improvements. Kathleen Road, right, where we know that we need to recruit some additional development to help move those neighborhoods along. And so as a part of that, we're going to propose reallocating $150,000 from that East Main District Job-Related Incentive Fund. We'll commence this grant starting in fiscal year 22, and we'll reflect that in our capital improvement plan. And then the final piece of that is for us to really sunset the job-related pilot and just kind of get that out of our circulation. And I'll stop for any questions you may have.
All right, any board members, do you have any questions? Any comments? Any concerns? Okay, and at this time, we'll open up for a public comment. Are there any public comments?
Mr. Chair, there are no callers at this time.
No callers at this time. Well, excellent. We will now entertain a motion to adopt. And parliamentarian, do we have to break these out serial item, or can we approve the entire recommendation as a whole?
This is Jared Simpson, Assistant City Attorney.
Yes.
I don't have any problem with just referencing the staff recommendation as the basis of the motion.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, board members, we're ready to receive a motion.
Sure.
Move to approve the recommendation from the staff.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Eady, seconded by Mr. Wiley, that we approve the recommendation coming from staff. If there is no discussion, we are ready to vote. I'll begin with myself. That is an aye for me. Brandon Eady. Brandon Eady. Frank Langsford.
Aye.
Commissioner McLeod.
Aye.
Harry Bryant.
Aye.
Cliff Wiley.
Aye.
And Brian Waller.
Aye.
Motion carries. Recommendation is approved. Thank you so much. And at this time, we'll move to our next agenda item, which is the EDGE report coming again from Elise.
Yes, sir. We got another grant that we're looking to adopt today, and also to sunset another. Again, this is related to the alignment of grant funding relative to the city and the CRA's administration of grants. So this one is encouraging development, growth, and expansion. We call it the EDGE grant. And this is, next slide, Jonathan. So this is targeting the food-related services incentive program. And we started with this in Dixieland. The program covers up to $15,000 in dollar-for-dollar matching funds to attract food-related businesses to the Dixieland CRA. Again, as I mentioned, we did expand this into the East Main District to target businesses like sit-down restaurants, potential grocers, cafes, health food and produce markets. And those funds were or are typically approved for electrical, plumbing upgrades, grease traps, and things that really make bringing a food-related business in cost prohibitive, like venting systems, sprinkler systems, solid waste issues, and any mechanical, electrical, or plumbing engineering services that need to be with those construction drawings that are needed in order to move a project along. So again, in 2016, we expanded that program into the East Main District, and we've had some success with the food-related services grant. We ended up getting Born and Bred with this one, Patriot Coffee, 1961, DeLuca's, Hillcrest Coffee. But again, we have not had any of these awarded in the East Main District, and we did not use this grant in Midtown, the greater Midtown. Next slide, please, Jonathan. So, kind of fast forward to the advisory board October retreat, and you all asked us to consider a couple of things. And one of those was loosening the grant restrictions in the redevelopment areas to support small business owners, those operators that potentially are small scale, right? They're entering into small scale entrepreneurial ventures. And then also, there was some conversation about businesses that want to grow in place, but really don't have the capital to participate in the larger programs that we do have. And then also, when you consider some of the grant funding that we do have across the board, it is specific to certain corridors in Midtown. So we don't get into the neighborhoods with administration of these funds either. We do intend to adjust the existing incentive ratios and bring that back to you, because that was another item that you asked for, is how we invest in specific corridors like Ford Avenue, Lakeland Hills, and Kathleen Road. So we talked about potentially adjusting the ratios of funding from the CRA to the developers or renovators in those spaces. But in this case, we want to make sure that we align what the advisory board asked for with what the commission is also having those conversations about as well. So there's some real intersection between these ideals. We want to provide an opportunity for those businesses that use innovative technology as well. And so this grant is geared towards food-related businesses, and then also those, again, other businesses that would like to expand. The businesses must be located, the city is looking to do this at $10,000 for those businesses located outside of the redevelopment area. And so again, we're aligning CRA funding with what the city is attempting to do. We're covering these items within the redevelopment area. So again, the food-related services piece, we're looking for a dollar-for-dollar matching grant of up to $25,000 on the CRA side. So when you look at that, you see the city is providing $10,000, but we want to incentivize so that folks consider the CRA first. So we want to throw a little bit of icing on the cake there. But again, the grant allows for expanded use throughout Dixieland, downtown, and Midtown. And I want you all to consider that the downtown CRA has been strapped for dollars for several years now. We're starting to work our way out of debt. And so we want to be able to provide some additional funding for those downtown businesses as well. They still have the same challenges despite the property values that are present downtown. So it makes it prohibitive for folks to come in, put in elevators, to come in and build out those spaces and install grease traps and things of that nature. So it is critical for us to kind of make these changes. These funds or these grants are not meant to replace the existing infill and facade grants that are currently offered in Dixieland and Midtown. So this is an additional grant. It is not replacing those, okay? And again, we want to make sure that we target those downtown businesses that haven't traditionally been able to receive funding. And then also, this adds a grant for Midtown businesses that really aren't along the focus corridors, and it opens us up to provide grant funding to businesses interior to the Midtown neighborhoods that would not otherwise qualify for grants. And when you consider that, there are really some businesses that are integral to those communities in Midtown that are interior to the community and not along one of those corridors, but they have not expanded or they have not received funding to renovate because of their location interior to the neighborhood. Okay. Next slide, please, Jonathan. So just looking at what we'd like to do here, we would like a recommendation here to adopt this EDGE incentive with the funds being available at a $25,000 match across all 3 CRA areas. So it's very consistent. And then also this program will be funded from a small project assistance line item, which we currently carry in our capital improvement plan. And then with that, because we're targeting food-related businesses as well within this, we want to sunset the food-related services incentive.
Excellent. Board members, are there any questions or comments relating to that presentation? Yes, Commissioner McLeod, you recognize.
Thank you. Elise, how do we let businesses know that these grants would now be available for those who maybe they didn't qualify under the food-related services, but now they would? How do we get that word out?
Well, we certainly advertise. We have Jonathan. He's excellent at what he does on the marketing side. We do post, and Jonathan manages our community outreach, so we'll get that out to folks. And then also, we'll likely field a lot of calls on it, and then we update our website to make sure that the grants are available there as well.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. Any other comments from our board members? And no further comments from the board. Do we have any public comments, Mr. Jonathan?
We do have a caller, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Caller, if you could please state your first and last name. Hello, if you dialed into this meeting recently, could you please state your first and last name? You're unmuted. All right, Mr. Chair, no response.
No response. Okay. Okay. Board members, we're now ready to receive a motion to approve the recommendation coming from the report of the EDGE recommendation.
Move the program as recommended by staff.
Moved by Mr. Edie, second by
Mr. Petkoff.
That's Mr. Petkoff. It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the recommendation coming from the staff. Is there any further discussion? There being no further discussion, we will receive our votes. I'll begin with myself. It is an aye. Brandon Edie. Brandon Edie. Frank Lunsford.
Aye.
Harry Bryant.
Aye.
Cliff Wiley.
Aye.
Ryan Waller,
Aye.
and Corey Petkoff.
Aye. Aye.
Recommendation is approved. Thank you so very, very much. Appreciate your work and diligence. Great report, Elise. The next item, we have the 103rd West 7th Street disposition. That report is coming, presentation is coming by DREL.
D, you need to unmute your mic. There we go.
My apologies. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All righty. Jonathan, you can go ahead to the next slide. Okay, so the CRA acquired this 10,584 square foot vacant property at 103 West 7th Street along Highway 98 on May 10th, 2007. The assessed value is $13,364. And it carries an average annual carrying cost of $536.41. In January of last year, staff was contacted by a local attorney interested in constructing an office/medical building. The original inquiry was to construct a 3,500 square foot building. After conducting their due diligence and considering the requirements of building size and layout, use, zoning, and easement improvements, the applicant decided not to move forward with this project at this specific location. Next slide. On November 30th, staff received an official letter of interest to purchase the property from 103 West 7th LLC. In accordance with the Florida Statute 163.380, staff published a notice of disposition for the development. Those requirements were for a minimum of 2,500 square foot building for office, commercial, or retail use. It was required that parking must be accommodated on site with cross access to the adjacent parcel. A minimum purchase price of $30,000, and the development must align with the goals of the Midtown District. That publication went through in the Ledger on December the 28th. All proposals were due in office by close of business on Wednesday, January the 27th. Only 2 proposals were received. 103 West 7th LLC submitted a proposal to purchase the property for $30,000 for the construction of a 2-story mixed-use building with 2,500 square feet of retail and office space on the ground floor. They were also proposing housing for medical professionals as permanent or temporary living quarters on the 2nd floor. The second proposal came from Phoenix Properties, LLP. They submitted to purchase the property for $32,000 for the construction of a approximately 2,600 square foot medical facility. On February 10th, 2021, staff received written notification from 103 West 7th LLC, formally withdrawing their interest in purchasing the property. Next slide. Phoenix Properties LLP is a Lakeland-based real estate company with a 70-year presence in Lakeland. They specialize in medical facility development. They propose to purchase at a price of $3,200 for the construction of 2,600 square foot medical facility. On the slide here, you'll see pictures of 4 other locations that they have developed for a medical facility. Next slide. Staff recommends the board authorize staff to negotiate a development agreement with the Phoenix Properties LLP for the purchase of 103 West 7th Street at the proposed purchase price of $3,200, which will go before the City of Lakeland's Real Estate and Transportation Committee for formal approval.
Correction, that's 32,000.
I'm sorry, 32,000.
Okay.
We do have Mr. Khan with Phoenix Properties LLP here. He has a presentation prepared for you. And when he's finished, we'll both be available to answer any questions you may have.
Very good.
Well, thank you for that introduction. My name is Adil Khan. I'm a general partner with Phoenix Properties LLP. And as Ms. Reed had presented, we responded to the advertisement for this location with a proposed cash offer of $32,000. Our goal is to build a medical facility. As was mentioned earlier, we specialize in medical facility development and have been in the Lakeland community for over 70 years. Many folks might know us through another entity name by the name of Clark and Daughtry Medical Group. That was our partner facility that was sold to Lakeland Regional Health in 2013. And the medical practice is now part of Lakeland Regional Health, but the real estate entity is still a separate entity. The ownership of Phoenix Properties is mainly comprised of the physicians from Clark and Daughtry Medical Group. So this is a physician-owned and run real estate development company, and therefore we're very much knowledgeable and have a great desire to build and develop medical facilities and resources for the wonderful community in Lakeland. Could you move to the next slide, please? This is just a draft design of what a facility layout could be on this property. As was mentioned, this is a relatively small piece of property, 10,500 square feet. So it does limit a little bit of the size of a facility. This facility would be approximately 2,600 square feet. This just gives you kind of an idea. You can see here that there are, waiting room, several exam rooms, nurses station, a lab area, things like that. The next slide, please. This kind of gives you the description of each of the rooms that we would be looking to develop. So this is our programming. And you can see here that this would be able to handle approximately 2 physicians, again, 6 exam rooms, and then the various supporting areas, restrooms, break rooms, staff area, nurses station, linens, medical supply storage, things of like that nature. Altogether 2,600 square feet. Next slide, please. This is just a quick description of all the properties that Phoenix Properties does own in Polk County. You see here at the top that the 5 major facilities that are up and operational are all being leased by Lakeland Regional Health, and is a total of 93,000 square feet. 4 of the facilities are in Lakeland, and 1 facility is in Winter Haven. And you can see there also the account numbers and for the property appraiser website of the location of each of these facilities. We did also own a number of properties in the Washington Park area that we're talking about with this particular property at 103 7th Street. So this gives you an idea of those locations. Next slide, please. This is kind of a zoom view of the Washington area. And you see that everything in red is either owned by Phoenix Properties already or is under a non-cancelable contract. So some of them are active businesses that, we're working with the business owners to kind of phase down their business as we take over the property. The area in blue is the property that we're talking about today, and that's the 103 7th West Street. So it's the little bit further south from the other properties, and it just kind of fits into the area that we plan to develop for medical, for major medical development. Next slide, please. This is just kind of a closer zoom in of this area. So you're going from on the top there, you see 10th Street. On the bottom, you see 8th Street. On the right is Florida Avenue 98, and on the left side is New York Avenue. So this complete block, everything in blue we have is actually owned by Phoenix Properties. Everything, the area in yellow is under contract to be owned. And the two on the corner there, they show the buildings there on the picture here. But in actuality, we've just demolished those two facilities earlier this month. So that's where you see the only thing left there is the billboard at the corner of 10th and Florida Avenue. Next slide, please. So this is our Pablo facility. That's at the corner of Pablo and Florida Avenue at the Southgate Shopping Center, 45,000 square feet. This is a multi-use medical facility used by Lakeland Regional Health. They just added an urgent care to this facility, and it has radiology, cardiology, urology, general surgery, a number of other specialties in this facility. Next slide, please. This is the Lake Miriam Primary Care Center. This is also leased by Lakeland Regional Health from Phoenix Properties. It's approximately 14,000 square feet. And this property has mostly primary care as well as walk-in clinic services. This property was fully renovated in 2012. Next slide, please. This is the Center for Cancer Care and Research. It has been recently renamed to the Watson Clinic Cancer Center. This is a condominium structure. So the right side of the building is owned by Phoenix Properties and the left side is owned by Watson Clinic. Watson Clinic runs their cancer program on that left side. On the right side, Lakeland Regional leases that property and has all their claims processing, call center, and anything related to their outpatient clinics. All of those support services are on that right side. That was previously the Clark and Daughtry Cancer Center on the right side, but that program was moved to the Hollis Center that Lakeland Regional has further up on Lakeland Hills Boulevard. Next slide, please. This is the Gateway Center. This is also a condominium structure. It's a two-story facility. Phoenix Property owns the first floor, which is approximately 9,000 square feet. And the Center for Retina and Macular Diseases owns the second floor, which is also about 9,000 square feet. Lakeland Regional leases the first floor from Phoenix Properties, and this is a primary care center as well as a walk-in clinic. So we would be very pleased if the committee would see that Phoenix Properties would be able to purchase this property on 103 7th Street, because we feel that this would connect with the other properties that we have acquired in this area. Our goal is to build a multiple medical complex. So it's not just going to be a standalone facility on this property, but that it would be connected to other medical facilities on the adjacent. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Khan. We appreciate you coming to share with us. And again, does the board have any questions or comments for Mr. Khan? And if not, we'll move now to any public comments. Jonathan, do we have any?
Mr. Chair, there are no callers at this time.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Again, thank you, Mr. Khan. And now to the board members, we would like to now entertain a motion for disposition of the 103rd West 7th Street property.
Yeah, I, Frank Lansford, move that we accept the offer as presented.
Is there a second?
Cliff Wiley seconds.
Been moved and properly seconded that we receive the report coming from the staff of disposition of 103rd West 7th Street. If there is no other discussion, we will proceed with our vote, beginning with myself. Aye. Brandon Edie. Brandon Edie.
I believe he's motioning aye. But
Yeah, okay, very good. Thank you. Frank Langsford.
Aye.
Commissioner McLeod.
Aye.
Harry Bryant.
Aye.
Clifford Wiley. Clifford Wiley.
Aye.
Brian Waller.
Aye.
And Corey Petkoff.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously to dissolve of the property 103rd West 7th Street. Thank you so much. We appreciate your work. And again, congratulations, Mr. Khan.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. The next item on the agenda for us is the discussion items, which will be presented by Elise.
Yes, and before I get into it, I just wanted to thank Mr. Khan for his desired investment in the area. I think a lot of folks don't realize that the medical district is both on the Lakeland Hills corridor and also on the Florida Avenue corridor. And so for us to really receive development on both of those corridors, I think it's a win for the Midtown district. And considering that there's not a lot happening from the stadium, probably up to 10th when you get to the hospital there. So to see this development take place and the acquisition and the combining of these parcels on the west side of the block, I think it'll be great for the area. So thank you, Mr. Khan.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Again, this is just a general discussion about mortgage subordination. And mortgage subordination is when the CRA, when we record our down payment assistance, we either have a lien or a promissory note on the property that gives us some first right to action on that, or we have to be notified of that action, as should the homeowner pursue refinance or something to that, anything in that nature. So generally with the down payment assistance program, we've historically had some extensive terms, to say the least. We had some of those dating back to 2005, 2006 when the program first kicked off. They're 30 years, and they were 30 years because that is the actual typical life of a home loan. But over the years, as we got into the program, our goals, they changed a little bit in that we wanted to really see infill development, and we also wanted to see the homes be occupied in the Midtown district. And so with that, we ended up reducing the terms of the actual down payment assistance obligations. So they've gone over time from 30 years. We have some that are 15 years, and then we also have a set that are 10 years, and then we have the least restrictive, which is a 5-year term. On the longer term promissory notes, folks actually have to repay a significant portion based on a tier of the number of years. And so just kind of looking at the generalities of it and the inconsistencies, with those folks on the shorter terms just being completely free after 5 years and having no encumbrances on their properties. I wanted to try to have a discussion about it. And we've loosely followed the housing division subordination policy. And I'm going to let Brian speak to this because, Brian, he wrote it. So who better to have a discussion about it than him? Brian.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Elise. Good afternoon, everyone. I didn't write it alone. Are we going to have it on the screen, or is it just in the agenda packet, I guess?
Yes, it is just in the agenda packet. It's page number 38 for you.
I'm bringing it up now. The subordination policy, and Elise explained pretty well, when our housing office or our CRA make loans, and these are loans to home buyers, those loans take a subordinate position to the first mortgage lender or mortgagee. And that's by design. The programs that Elise and the CRA have had over the years are very similar to those in our housing office. They differ in one big way, and that is that in our housing office, they're income restricted. Our housing office provides that assistance, home purchase assistance, to buyers who otherwise would not be able to realize the dream of home ownership. And so they accept that assistance. The loan is structured so that it is not considered active debt. That means that it's deferred. It is not repaid monthly as your other mortgage, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance would be paid. It remains deferred and inactive, provided the recipient of that assistance complies with the terms of that assistance, namely that they continue to occupy that home as their principal residence, they maintain it, and they pay that first mortgage and taxes and insurance. When a recipient, well, I didn't explain the difference between that and CRA. So housing is providing it to income eligible buyers. The CRA has typically provided it to buyers of any income as an incentive to get them to invest and move into neighborhoods within the CRA's boundaries that they wouldn't otherwise move into because they have greater housing choice, because they're not income constrained as those that maybe are seeking assistance from our housing office. The form of the assistance really is identical. The terms may be different, and Elise talked to you about the breadth of those terms. But in both groups, that second mortgage, whether it's a lien or a mortgage and a note, is subordinate to the first, but is still debt that must be considered and dealt with by that homeowner if they ever seek to, or during the term of that assistance, seek to sell or to refinance that first mortgage. That's where subordination comes in. We get these requests because owners, for various reasons, seek to refinance their first mortgage, and they're not going to get it refinanced if we won't agree to subordinate to the new first mortgage. So we have a policy for that, and it starts off generally saying we don't do it, but we will agree to do it under certain circumstances. I'm looking at the policy. Hopefully you all are as well. Those requests come from the either broker or actual mortgage company seeking the subordination, and provided that that request is for a lower interest rate, lower monthly PITI, they're pretty easy to approve. The prohibitions in the policy are listed in number 7, and hopefully everyone can see and understand why they are prohibited. And that is, we don't want to subordinate so that buyers who have received assistance previously can unknowingly put themselves in jeopardy into products that are not conventional, that might put them in peril. Adjustable rates, balloons, open lines of credit where they can borrow at will in a position superior to that public assistance, and whether it's CRA or CDBG or SHIP, it's all public dollars that went into that second mortgage or that assistance. Reverse mortgages, anything that involves a prepayment penalty, interest-only mortgages, and negative amortization. There's also a prohibition on cash out, and that one has become relevant of late, where we have had requests for refinancing that involved cash out to the homeowner. And that prohibition is one that we have consistently applied for at least the 18 years or now 13 years that I've been involved in our housing programs, because again, you're allowing that owner to profit potentially unduly at the expense of the public assistance they received. The better option in such a scenario is they simply pay off the public assistance that they availed themselves of in purchasing the residential unit. The policy has served us well. It required some tweaking back through the recession. You see revision dates in 9 and 10, and then again in 19. I don't recall exactly what was revised, but I know that short sales during the Great Recession required us to adapt very quickly to subordination requests for homeowners seeking to avoid foreclosure, banks trying to avoid foreclosing. So we worked hard to accommodate those buyers, but also, or owners at that point, but also safeguarding the public investment that was made in these particular units. I think Elise is recommending that the advisory board bless a policy either identical to or very similar to the one that our housing office employs that's in your agenda packet. And then to further that conversation about the term of assistance for that purchase assistance program, recognizing, and our housing office has reduced the terms of their assistance as well, where they used to be 30 years across the board. They've reduced that now down to 20 or 15, depending on the dollar amount of the assistance that's being awarded. And what happens, so you understand, at the end of that term, that second mortgage simply expires. It goes away. The investment, the assistance that was provided by either our CRA or our housing office is deemed to have met its goal and purpose at the end of that term length. And so it simply goes away. Anytime before that expiration that owner wants to either refinance or sell, they have to pay back or get us to subordinate, if they're refinancing, the portion that is unexpired or unforgiven at that point. I'm going to take a breath now, and Elise can either jump in or I'll take whatever questions you have.
No, and I will jump in and add to that. So as Brian mentioned, they're different in that the CRAs, we did provide down payment assistance to folks who are not income restricted, and then also some of those terms are very lengthy. And so when we talk about potentially looking at the policy and figuring out, how we want to potentially maybe, the board wants to consider a realignment of these, having someone who has a 30-year term before their payment is satisfied is extremely restrictive. Whereas a couple of years ago, we were looking at a 5-year, and now we have some people who are basically coming to term on theirs, and they'll be free and clear to do what they want with their property. So, we're just trying to get a little guidance on, the policy. Do we want to tweak it? Do we want to look at how we might be able to have some standard approach to this relative to the number of years on a lot of these previously issued down payment assistances? And then I'll stop there, and Brian and I can collectively answer your questions.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Just my two questions are, is there a way to adopt the same policy for both programs? And I guess that's kind of some of your question as well. And secondly, currently, what is the policy for the housing authority? Is it 15 years now? Is it down to 15 years?
When you say housing authority, you mean the Lakeland Housing Authority, not our housing office inside
Your
our
housing
department?
I think within the department for this policy.
Yeah, within our department, the term of the loans that they provide is down to 20 or 15, depending on the amount of assistance that the home buyer is receiving.
Okay.
But that's separate from the subordination policy, and it probably would be best if we take those up one issue at a time.
Yes. Yes. In regards to the subordination policy.
I'm not aware of a reason you could not adopt it and we, or Elise and his staff, bring back a formal version that obviously was tweaked to reference the CRA and not our affordable housing programs for adoption, or Elise?
Yeah, we could. I think we could do that, or we can review it, give you all an opportunity to look at it, and then we can really come back and maybe add in some of the proposed revisions that you all may have. Just having an opportunity to look at the housing's portion, right, their program. So I can send the housing policy as a standalone document, and then perhaps you all can mull it over, and then we can come back with some additional considerations and maybe craft something for the next meeting. So what I can do is send out that policy in advance. If you'd like to, you can send some documents over, some notes, and again, we can pull something together based upon your comments.
Excellent. I like that idea. And also, for a point of clarification, has there been misunderstanding some of those recipients in addressing the subordination policy? Has there been confusion on behalf of the buyer in the past?
Well, I wouldn't say there's confusion on behalf of the buyer. I think there is a desire at times to get out of that 30-year term because, you know, the buyers certainly want to be able to take action on their property without the encumbrance, right? And so if you've got someone that has put in 15 or 17 years in a property where they now still have to pay back 50 or 60% of that original amount of money, you can see how that can kind of turn that upside down for them. So I think that it would, it does create a little bit of angst for folks who've been in it for a long time, who've been invested in a community for 15 to 20 years that still have to have that as a consideration. The folks with the 5-year terms, they're generally happy because they they're in and out with it, and there's also no prorated repayment for them. If they get out early, we get to buy it back for whatever they bought their home for, or they have to repay it.
Mm-hmm. And what has been previous aversion to doing something like that in the past?
Can you clarify for me?
In regards to why this has not been addressed until now?
Well, I would say that, given the climate and folks are refinancing a whole lot more, the mortgage rates are favorable for them to do so, to reduce payments. But then also with the reduction in payments, there's an opportunity to, to take money away from that deal, to conduct improvements on a home. There are some various reasons why folks might, at this time, look at refinancing and then have to stare a subordination right in the face.
Okay. No, I like the idea. I think that 20 to 30 years is definitely too long to have to contend with. So that's all of my questions.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
I believe Commissioner
McLeod? Yes.
Thank you, Pastor Lake. Yeah, Elise, I would be curious to know about how many properties we have in those longer terms that might be where we wouldn't do that today, that could be impacted. And then also the consideration, if you have, as you mentioned, someone who wanted to do a refinance and receive cash, but to put back into the property to do improvements in that area, is that something we want to look at to providing that as a consideration, flexibility in the policy?
Sure, I think we can look at the numbers. I will tell you that the down payment assistance program in those previous terms a lot of times those documents are either they're tucked away or we have to go pull them with the recorded mortgage when the transactions take place. So it will take us some time to pull those together. So I can't generally just tell you off the top of my head how many we have on the longer terms. But we can consider anything that you all drop out there. Pastor Lake the chairman has mentioned that, we've got obviously that 20 to 30 years is too long. So what is the consideration? Do you all want to see something of a reduction to 15 years and where we take, where we can allow some action? We can certainly align it similar to housing, but provide something that works for CRA purposes, given, again, consideration to folks who want to refinance and then conduct improvements on their homes. It lets us know that they'll be in the home, right? They're not selling, so really they're reinvested into their property. Yeah, so we can explore some additional terms. It is open discussion. Board members, feel free to give us some more recommendations that we can kind of take and tease out and maybe put in here and make it our own.
Elise, I'm not sure if this.
Excellent.
How many outstanding notes do we have that are 30-year? How many are 20-year, 15, 10, 5? Have that breakdown?
We don't. That's what the commissioner just asked. We would have to put some work in to pull the full list to put it together to kind of give you a layout of what they entail.
Okay.
And we can look at it and bring it back to you if you like.
Okay. And what year did we make the switch from? When did we implement the 5-year policy?
If you stand by one moment, I can look at the program. We've had several edits, and so we kind of tweaked those
Okay.
as we go.
I feel like that was in the last about 10 years or so. So I'm sure we've had some that have completed their 5 years. I think we should have a good number of those.
You are correct, or we have folks who are in their last year, because we kind of hit it hard in 17 and 18 where I think one of those years we did about $520,000 in down payment assistances. So we were very aggressive with those.
I'd be open to exploring. Sorry.
I think we lost Mr. Edie. He disconnected.
And just to answer his question, the last revision we had on this was in 2018, but that revision was to decrease the amount of down payment assistance. We saw that the amount of down payment assistance we were given at the time was kind of, I'll say, falsely propping up the marketplace a little bit, and we were providing a little too much money, and so that we reduced that grant amount in order to issue more grants, and we ended up running out of money. We still ended up running out of money, so we did more when we reduced those monies that we provided. So, Mr. Edie, if you missed that, it was revised in September of 2018, and then we have some older versions as well.
I'd be interested in exploring in knowing how many of these we have outstanding and when they expire. It seems to me, my feeling is, if we have made the move to reduce the term, I'd like to explore. Go ahead and forgiving the 30-year, 25, 20, 15, 10-year, those ones that have passed the 5-year mark that are on this older policy, bring that date with what we're currently doing. To me, the purpose of get people to invest and reinvest in the area, and if we can allow them to access the equity they have in their home a little bit easier by forgiving these, which would, had they bought and used the program more recently, they're in a better position to do that. I think that makes a lot.
Okay. So just a couple of points to that. So if you're saying that, potentially that we would bring them all into compliance with a 5-year term, I just want you to consider a couple of things. One of those, and I'll ask our attorney on the line with us, how do we then record documentation that is, I would say, satisfying those promissory notes that are beyond a 5-year period, and then make sure that it is known to those owners and recorded legally that they are now satisfied from those obligations?
Well, I mean, we could, whether or not we receive the funds, we can record a satisfaction if it's, determined that we aren't going to be collecting or enforcing that agreement. I mean, it's something that I actually do fairly routine with some bills that we attempt to collect. We negotiate settlements of those outstanding payments, and then we record a satisfaction, even though we have not been completely, paid the amount that we were owed. I would analogize it to that we would be essentially waiving the enforcement of those provisions by recording a release or a satisfaction. There would be a cost to that, and of course there's a time cost for your staff to go and find all of these notes, the book and page numbers, all the recording documents, and then preparing this releases and satisfactions, and then the recording fees as well, so that there's a time and a cost to kind of proactively relieving these people. The other option that we would have is that when the folks come in to request, the ability to refinance or whatever it is they're trying to do, that we could then apply our current subordination policy and not hold them to the terms of the agreement that they're bound to, that's been recorded. I hope that answers your question.
It does. And just wondering, does that bring forth any additional questions from the board?
I just want to say that makes a lot of sense if it's more passive approach. Let's allow people to come in. When they come in, we'll address it. That seems like we would avoid some extra expense, but still would accomplish the same outcome. That makes, to me, that seems like a good way to go.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Eady, for that comment. So it sounds to me, and please let me know if I'm missing something or misinterpreting. It sounds to me that we would like to simply reduce the terms of all of our down payment assistances that are outstanding to a 5-year term, but then also those who have been within their agreement for or beyond 5 years, that we would like to satisfy those whenever folks come in, and that seems pretty straightforward. So at request or when they come in, we would be satisfying those who have been restricted for greater than 5 years. Is that accurate?
And Elise, if I may, just as a suggestion, if the motion can be for you to bring back the policy, or are you asking for the board to essentially what you just requested, that you be allowed to go ahead and implement that, or are you asking to bring back an actual document for the board to comment on?
Sure. And I don't know if we need the document, if the intent is to forgive those, to satisfy all those. Let me see here. Let me just go back through the housing policy here. Because essentially, it sounds to me that would we still be subordinating if the terms were within the 5 years? And it sounds like that, to me, that would not be the case, right? Is the board saying that the subordination is for those, or the satisfaction is for those greater than 5 years, and then are we asking for folks to otherwise to stay within the 5 years, and then the only way that we would subordinate would be for a refinance that doesn't take money away from the table? Or would you like to see a document that applies to those 5 years as well, that aligns with the housing policy?
The issue that I just, for the benefit of the board, is there's been a couple of questions about from board members about, who the affected folks are going to be, kind of the breadth of the program. And then there's been some comments about the cash out, whether or not we can allow cash out under certain stipulations. So it sounds to me like the board does have an interest in some of the particulars.
Sure.
I don't want to speak for any particular members, but I'm just trying to recap some of the comments, and it may be beneficial to take the affordable housing subordination program that we have here, and as Brian suggested, go ahead and tweak that to so that the language reflects the CRA, and then we can highlight the I guess contentious points or the points where we need further feedback within that policy.
All right. Brian, let's do that.
Yes, and I was just going to suppose that Commissioner McLeod and Mr. Eady both asked for, a list or a chronicling of how many such notes and mortgages are out there by term, by expiration, by payoff amount or percentage. And I think rather than run with, and of course the board can certainly say 5 years is it, across the board, applies to everybody, but I think the board would be better served to make such a decision with a list of all those affected or unaffected by such a move than simply doing it quickly today and us trying to implement it. And due respect to our assistant city attorney, Jared, I would rather not rely on those who suddenly find themselves with an expired second note and mortgage having to come to us to ask for subordination or something for us to break the good news to them, because they're going to make financial decisions based on their assumption that that note and mortgage is still in place when we've decided, or this board has decided, that it's not. So if that is the will of the board, ultimately today or next month or some future date, I think we will have to notify that homeowner that there has been a change and this is the effect of the change. I doubt any of them will object.
Yeah, it's one thing to send out a letter to notify them that we've changed the policy and now they're eligible for subordination. And then it's a little bit different to then go ahead and prepare all of the documents related to that. I have no objection either way. It's really up to the board. But yeah, certainly I agree that we should notify people and not expect them to just know that the CRA had a virtual meeting and decided not to enforce the promissory note that they signed and recorded.
Right, and that gets back to the subordination versus lien term or loan term policy. are two different things. If we release that mortgage, then they don't need it subordinated for anything.
Right. That's right. Commissioner McLeod? Yep.
Thank you. And I was just going to reiterate, Brian, that I do think it's important to get the full picture of how many properties owners are we talking about at those different levels. And I would support, at least if you all are hearing some of the recommendations, the things that Brandon and others have mentioned in that direction, to come back with those specifics on paper just for our consideration. And maybe even, as you continue the conversation at the staff level, there may be some things we're missing here. I would feel more comfortable having that come back and then being able to vote on it once we can see it on paper.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. So just for clarification on actions, CRA staff will be looking at the number of properties that have the outstanding numbers here on the that would otherwise require subordination. We're looking at the terms, we're looking at the amounts, and we're looking at the expiration of those. And so we'll have a clearer picture of those that would be impacted. And then also to take some of the comments that were integrated here today or that were mentioned here today, to go back, look at the housing policy, kind of merge here, and then highlight some of the contentious points that we probably need some additional clarification on.
Excellent. Sounds perfect. Okay. Any other comments? No other comments. Any final parting words, Elise?
Yes, I just want to say thank you for the discourse today. I know that sometimes it is difficult to come in and have discussion on the spot about some of these things, given the technicality of it as well. And then also I want to remind you that, again, Midtown Lofts, we're going to have a ribbon cutting there. Looking forward to that in April. So it'll be towards the end of the month. Expect an RSVP. The folks from Green Mills will be excited to see you out there. And it is something that will be wonderful for our community.
Excellent. We're looking forward to it. Okay, we'll ask for the good of the order, is there any other business that we need to discuss today? There being no other business, I declare this meeting adjourned. We will see.